WFNY BrownsCast. I'm your host, Joe Gilbert. I'm with my co-partner here, Taylor Jedrzejek. How are you doing today, Jed? Taylor?
Pretty good. Pretty
Yeah.
good. 2 straight weeks of winning.
Right.
Does a lot for the.
Psyche.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to. I was trying to avoid saying psyche because that would make it seem like this team is my whole life.
Right.
But it certainly does improve the mood.
Yes, the mood. That's a good way. So this is another edition of the BrownsCast, part of the Evergreen Podcast Network. And we're also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. For first-time depositors, enter in the code WFNY at checkout, and Underdog will match your deposit up to $100. Underdog is a great platform. We've part of the DFS salary system. There are a lot of great types and drafts every night for every single sport. Don't forget to use WFNY at checkout for your first-time deposit, and you'll be matched up to $100. That's Underdog Fantasy. Before we get to our kind of preview of this week's game, let's go back to last week and kind of any final thoughts that you had after the past couple of days. I thought Deshaun Watson actually spoke a couple minutes ago here, and his comments about his game kind of pointed to what we were thinking too. He mentioned that there's a lot of stuff going on with just the homecoming, his debut back in the NFL. So that was going through his head for most of the game.
Yeah.
And he also said his mechanics were just bad. So that's something we pointed out too. Yeah, we pointed out too. That's why we saw a lot of low passes. So, any final thoughts you had after last week's game?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of what Deshaun did bad on Sunday they were all correctable mistakes. Mechanical stuff, not seeing the game quick enough, or the game being too quick, fast for him because he hasn't seen it in so long.
Pressure coming at you.
Yeah, the off the field stuff will lessen. Although I think this week it's going to be probably the most brutal that he'll see.
Probably.
Well, anywhere outside Cleveland is going to be pretty brutal for about the next year or so. But division opponents and all that is probably even more so. So the chance that he heard in the preseason and all that stuff is going to come back this week. It's just a matter of whether or not he's able to kind of tune that out and fix his mechanics enough to make a difference positively in the game, because I don't think, luckily the Texans were as bad as they are because the negative impact that Watson's game had on the Browns on Sunday definitely was canceled out by the fact that the Texans were so bad.
Right.
Yeah. It ended up being like a neutral impact game for, he didn't help, he didn't hurt.
Right.
He just didn't do anything.
Right.
So, but you can't have that kind of game the next 2 weeks. You need to be.
Yeah. It was basically a preseason game.
Yeah.
We actually saw it in the preseason where he struggled quite a bit.
Yeah. I mean, in the preseason, he didn't get a whole lot of run, but
yeah,
it's still something that he needs to get it back under get himself back up, and almost, I don't want to say relearn how to be a quarterback, but I don't know how else to say it.
Relearn
he hasn't
to be
done
an
it in
NFL
so long.
Quarterback.
He hasn't done it in so long.
Right. I think just the game is just kind of. You forget. I feel like even that he has all this experience, that you just kind of forget. Oh, these guys are super fast out here. These guys come at me faster than anything I could kind of project or kind of practice, and it kind of hits you. So I think,
and they're allowed to hit me now,
right?
Or they're not in practice.
Right. I think that, and just the homecoming, coming back to Houston, it was just, I think everything kind of put it all together. And it made sense that the mechanics broke down because he kind of wasn't thinking. He was just kind of overthinking things, and
he wasn't doing. He was thinking.
yeah, right. And that happens when you have all those kind of thoughts in your mind at once.
Yeah.
So
And some of that stuff he put on himself, obviously.
true.
You can't absolve him from
right.
all of it.
No.
So
no. Yeah, he put himself into this position.
Yeah,
No
like you can't feel sorry for him. It's just stating what happened. Like,
yeah, right.
he looked like crap because he hasn't played quarterback in almost 2 years. Like,
Yeah.
this is what happens.
Yep, exactly. Good way to put it. But yeah, so that is last week. Not other besides Deshaun Watson. There's not much else you could really take from that game because he didn't play an NFL team. It seemed like.
No, you played a very good XFL team,
right? Like Tony Fields scoring a touchdown, Denzel getting probably the easiest touchdown I've ever seen in my life.
He almost looked surprised that the ball was there.
Seriously, like right, it was like, oh,
I should get this.
I should get this, and like basically no one else knew the football was out.
Yeah, like I put in the Discord, when that play happened, about 16 or 17 of the 22 people on the field were in one mass of humanity, and the ball ended up outside of that mass, and just pick it up, and he could have walked.
He could have. He probably could have. Yeah. So that was kind of something. Yeah. Besides that, the you can't really take much from that game. So for now,
York looked good.
Cade York, yes. We need to build a dome. That's that's basically the thing I got from that game. Build a dome.
He's still got a kick in Pittsburgh at some point.
True.
He hasn't done that yet.
Yeah.
Since he isn't that much better, but I don't know what the
Pittsburgh, the field is terrible, and the wind is just terrible. Yeah, it's Pittsburgh and Cleveland are probably the two hardest places to kick. I would assume. Buffalo too. Buffalo, yeah. Great. Yeah. Besides that, we move on to this week. We're playing the Cincinnati Bengals. So this is a huge game for any hope the Browns have for the playoffs. Cincinnati leads the division with Baltimore at 8-4. They're 4-1 at home. The Browns are 5-7 and 2-4 away from home. So it's going to be a tough matchup. But the Browns somehow have Joe Burrow's number for some reason. Well, I think they have the Bengals number.
Yeah,
I think Joe Burrow hasn't really struggled. I think he struggled in maybe one of them, one and a half of the games. But yeah, it's something kind of. It makes the game more interesting to me. Like if we didn't have this kind of track record, I wouldn't be feeling as well as I think about this game.
They've won their last 5 over the Bengals,
right,
and 8 of the last 9.
That's crazy.
The only loss being that I think it was probably week 17 or 16 or 17 in 2019 when everyone knew that everyone's going to get fired anyway. So,
right. Draft positioning there.
Yeah. But between, the Bengals just haven't been able to stop the Browns running game in any of these games. I had them all pulled up here. The Thursday night game in week 2 of 2020, the Browns rushed for 215 yards. In the game where Baker had the comeback, where they actually tried to shut down the run, they ran for 82. So 153 in the 41-16 game last year. And then 172 on Halloween night. So
yeah,
it's a lot. They're averaging like 140, 50 yards a game against the Bengals.
Right. It's kind of been interesting. It's been basically, besides I think that the comeback one, they've been basically the same type of games. The Browns dominated on the run game, and then they just couldn't pass. The Cincinnati just couldn't pass block on
Yeah.
for Joe Burrow. So, and that's pretty much what they're going to have to do this week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what the stat is. I think Miles has like 8 sacks against the Bengals in his career.
Right.
He has an absurd like 30% pressure rate against the Bengals,
Ridiculous.
which is chestnuts.
Right.
1 out of every 3 dropbacks, Miles Garrett is getting to Joe Burrow.
It just seems like they don't put any extra guys on him as much as you like. Like a lot of teams just put 5 guys on it. It just seems like they put their tackles in a lot of single situations.
Well, I don't think
very
they don't have the same use like tight end usage that the Browns do.
True.
So most of the time they're out there with 3 receivers.
Right. That's a good point.
Because why are you going to take one of those 3 guys off the field? Even though Tyler Boyd had that horrendous drop on Sunday,
Oh, yeah.
like you don't want to take those 3 guys off the field if you can help it. So you don't necessarily have a whole ton of space for chipping. And I mean, if they're going to keep leaving Jonah Williams on an island against Myles Garrett's going to keep sacking Joe Burrow twice a game.
Right.
Like it's just, I mean, it's been proven that he can't block him for consistently over the course of a football game. He can't block him for the entire game. And if the Browns are able to get ahead, like they did on Halloween, they're able to just go after Joe Burrow because the Bengals seem to abandon the run pretty quickly. I don't know why they abandoned the run so quickly on Halloween. That was a close game for most of it.
Yeah.
But
they've done that a lot this year too. They've gone very pass heavy.
Yeah, I mean they had 10 runs. They called 10 running plays.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, that'll be interesting to see kind of how if they kind of change up what they've been doing. I know Samaje Perine has been running very well past couple games.
Yeah, he's honestly in this. I mean, I know Bengals fans, but I don't necessarily know if this is a hot take for them or not. I think he's probably been better as a true running back than Joe Mixon was.
Mm-hmm.
Joe Mixon was really not having a great season. He's had like one spectacular, incredible game against the Panthers where I guess they just thought he didn't exist. But
that's another. Joe Mixon is also terrible at pass blocking too, so that's another kind of contributing factor in how they're unable to kind of pass block versus the Browns pass rush. So Samaje is quite a bit better, I think.
Yeah, I mean, and he's also shown that he can catch the ball.
Too. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so that's definitely. It'll be interesting to see how. I know Joe Mixon has been a full participant, at least yesterday. He was coming off a concussion, so I assume he'll be playing. But it'll be interesting to see, like, what if they split it up, or if they just keep with the hot hand, or they just go back to Joe Mixon. It'll be interesting to see. I'm not sure how they would go. You never know with Zach Taylor. What the heck?
Yeah, I mean, he does some weird things.
He does some very weird things.
Yes, it'll be hard to know what he's gonna do.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think, I mean, the crux of get into it here in a second. Obviously, Joe Burrow is their entire identity on offense right now.
Yep.
And that's not a knock on him at all. I mean, he can be their entire identity and they can win games. So, the last 2 times that he's played the Browns, he didn't play in week 17 last year, or whenever that was. The last 2 times he's played the Browns, he has not played particularly well. Whatever the Browns have done have confused him, and I don't know if that's pressure or if that's
especially early in games too.
yeah. I don't know if the pressure is getting to him, like not the pressure of the moment, the pressure from Myles Garrett.
Right.
um, but it's just not. It's not been like Joe Burrow performances. Like even on Halloween, he was 25 of 35 for 232, 2 touchdowns and a pick.
Mm-hmm.
But I think prior to garbage time, when the Browns went up 25-0 in the fourth quarter, he had like 95 passing yards for no touchdowns and a pick.
Right.
Like he was not performing well. And then in the 41-16 game last year, he was 28 of 40 for 282 and 2 picks. One of those picks went for a touchdown.
Right.
So
yeah, it's weird too because like it's not like it's just the Browns who are able to pass rush and get pressure on them. Like this happens every week. Like their offensive line is a problem, but for some reason it's just I think I don't know if it's Myles Garrett because that is kind of interesting that he kind of pointed him out. They asked him a question.
No one else has Myles Garrett.
Yeah, no one else has. It's just interesting that he would point him out. Obviously, that's true, but like it's interesting. I don't know if that's like something in his head or like he knows, hey, this guy's coming after me.
I don't think it's in his head to start games. I think
once he sees them, does a little
once Jonah Williams olays him the first time,
it's like, oh shit, I gotta get going. I gotta throw this ball quickly.
Yeah, and that in itself takes away a big part of their offense.
Yeah, downfield vertical.
It takes away their deep outs, their go routes, stuff like that. Long developing plays. The same reason the Browns struggled in 2019 when Freddie Kitchens was deciding that he wanted to go deep to OBJ at least once a possession, and they had like no offensive tackles.
Every route tree was like 25 yards downfield.
Yeah.
Oh man, Freddie Kitchens. Yeah, it's weird. It's weird to see him kind of struggle versus the Browns because it's not like it's anything different that he faces every week where he's constantly getting pressure in his face. We saw it last week. Kansas City got to him, and he still made plays. So,
well, unlike he has had against the Browns, they had a running game last week because Cincinnati can't stop the run.
Great,
yeah. The Browns can't stop the run either, but
yeah, for some reason they just don't go to that. We'll see.
Yeah.
That'll be interesting because the Cincinnati game, it was like in the beginning of when teams started to figure out, oh, we can run against this Browns team with relative ease. So I wonder, it'll be interesting to see kind of if they actually stick with the run and attack the Browns defense that way. Especially with two backs now this week. That'll be something to watch, especially early on. If they again abandon the run, then the Browns are in good position, I think.
Yeah, I mean, this will be the one factor that I want to see in this game is this will be the first time that Joe Burrow has gotten a second shot at them in a season. In 2020, he tore his ACL between the two games.
Good point.
In 2021, he didn't play in the second game. And as far as we know, he's still healthy enough to play this week. He's going to be healthy enough unless something happens, freak concussion or something.
That's a good call there.
It'll be the first time that Joe Burrow gets a second crack at the defense.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that I will say in the Browns' defense favor is that I don't know if there's a cornerback room better suited to match up with the Bengals in the league right now.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like Denzel Ward has done has frustrated Jamar Chase in the past.
Yep.
He's just not able to, even though he did get open a lot last week by just throwing guys around.
Like Denzel's not afraid to get physical.
No, Denzel will get up there and challenge you too. But I think the emergence of Martin Emerson really helps
T. Higgins.
against T. Higgins because they didn't have, like, you could put Greg Newsom on him, but T. Higgins is so big.
And T. Higgins is the one who kind of has been successful against him. I think he was the leading receiver in the last game.
Yeah, I think he caught the touchdown.
Yeah, so he's definitely, that's a huge kind of find that Browns can kind of have a guy that can match up the size of T. Higgins.
Yeah, so I mean, and there's enough documented proof on Martin Emerson that he can do this. I mean, we're talking about Mike Wallace in the San Diego game, who I think he did fairly well on, aside from maybe one play. He did stop the fourth down at the end of the game that should have given the Browns the win, but didn't. And then trying to see, yeah, he did play. Okay, he did play against the Bengals on Halloween. I wanted to see if that was one of the games he was out or not. But even that night, I think T. Higgins made his touchdown catch over Emerson, but he was still 3 for 49, and I think that touchdown was 31 yards.
Right.
So
yeah. And that was earlier in the season, and he's just kind of really turned it on.
Yeah, I mean, his performance on Mike Evans a couple weeks ago is what gives you the belief that maybe he could replicate this against T. Higgins.
Right.
Obviously,
Mike Evans is a better version of T. Higgins.
Yeah. And obviously that leaves Tyler Boyd, and they have some of those other receivers, Trenton Irwin, who's been making some catches lately.
The nice thing though is with Boyd, they have Newsom in the slot who can cover him.
Yeah, and if they want to go 4 wide, I mean, they have the corners to do it, but I wouldn't scoff at putting JOK on one of those their wide receiver 4. Like,
right. Yeah, I think the kind of the thing to look out for is going to be the tight ends. Hayden Hurst is he's limited in practice right now, but that seems like maybe the matchup they could exploit. Talk about the Bengals, depending on who covers them. But we don't know who the heck's going to be out there, so they might not have that option to go towards. Like last year, they had CJ what is his name? CJ what is his name?
Oh God,
I can't think of his name. Yeah,
Uzomah.
Yeah, but he's now at the Jets, and so it'll be. I feel like that would have been something they attack, but I don't know if Hayden Hurst is going to play. So
and Hayden Hurst only had 4 for 42 in the last game,
right?
So
yeah. Well, I think they had without Chase. Without Chase, you're just kind of, that offense is not as strong as it can be.
No, and obviously they've played Chase before.
Right.
The one, I mean, you can't use the December game.
No.
But last year when they had Chase, when they played against Chase and they got out to the big lead, what was that? What was the score of that game? 31-10 after the Nick Chubb run. T. Higgins was 6 for 78. Jamar Chase was 6 for 49. Joe Mixon was 5 for 46.
Yeah.
So
that's another. The running backs will be interesting to cover too on the backfields.
Yeah. The thing that even though we criticize Joe Woods, and there's been some criticism of Andrew Berry this year for some of his decisions, it does feel like this defense is uniquely tuned to stop what the Bengals do. Like, for whatever reason, the Bengals really frustrate the Chiefs. They're not like a great defense, but whatever they do frustrates the Chiefs.
Yep.
And whatever the Browns do frustrates the Bengals.
Yeah.
Like they can't solve it. Those things, both of those things can be true.
Yep.
And to this point, 2020 was rough because they gave up a lot of points to the Bengals, but they won both games. They gave up 64 points to the Bengals in those two games, but they won both. Last year, they had the one game. They had 41-16. It was 31-10, 34-10 at the end of the third quarter. So
yeah,
you take out the defensive touchdown, it's 27-10. Add a field goal in case they score that, it's 27-13, 27-17. You're still up 10 points.
Right.
I mean, obviously does that change the inflection of the game with that? I don't know, because the Bengals went right back down the field and scored again. It was 7-7 in that game. So it's kind of cool to see that this defense does have some merit, and this week will be a further solidification of that if they're able to stop them.
Right.
If they're able to do the job again, and then they're able to do the job again next week against the Ravens. Like, for some reason, this defense sucks against most teams.
except for you two,
Cincinnati and Baltimore, they're really good against.
Right.
Like,
that is very.
Next week might not be the greatest indication of what they're capable, because Lamar might not play. But
this week is the big test, though. This is the big test.
I think if you're able to do it again against the Bengals, you have serious internal discussions on whether or not Joe Woods could hang around, because these are 4 of your 17 games.
Right.
Like, if you're able to shut down these teams 4 times and then watch the Steelers squirm in the background.
Right. Yeah. It's so interesting.
Like, I don't want to say I'm back on the Joe Woods bandwagon, but
it's just so weird.
The Bengals are a good team, and they've the last 2 meaningful games they've played against them, they've destroyed them.
Yeah.
So,
right. Yeah, this is like the big test, because the Bengals are coming in hot. They're playing probably their best football of the year. They're healthy pretty much on offense. This is definitely something to kind of look out for. If
the Browns defense is coming in hot as well, I believe.
True.
While we can't take away take away a whole lot from last week in terms of what they did output wise, I think scoring certainly raises morale. The fact that you blew out a team without scoring an offensive touchdown raises morale.
Getting turnovers is just that's a huge thing. That was they haven't had. What was the last game we had a turnover? It was quite a while. That's just one of the big things. Like, this defense
might have been the Bengals game. I don't think they had a turnover against the Bucs.
Right. Yeah, like, this defense just has not been able to produce like that was part of the thing last year, where they were able to get turnovers, but this year they just been it's like not even been close either.
Yeah, they're just not in the positions to do it.
Right. So we'll see. We'll see if it continues.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's kind of the Browns defense versus the offense. Let's kind of move over to the offense here. So we talked about Deshaun already, how he struggled with his mechanics and kind of just his processing.
With everything.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, with everything. He did run well, which is, I would hope so. But it's gonna be a huge thing, because I know we talked about how much success this Browns defense. I just think they're just going to have to score. They're going to have to score a lot to keep up in this game, and they need Deshaun to kind of step up. I think a big key will be getting that run game going. It was successful last week for much of the game. I would say it was solid. I think it could be more dynamic with the zone read and kind of the RPOs and all that kind of.
Yeah.
You have to kind of look for two different people to take the ball, so that could help. But yeah, Deshaun's just got to be better. Is basically he's just got to be like he just has to play Brissett level. Like we're not even asking for all
No,
pro.
and the thing that I'm wondering is how the Bengals are going to plan to attack this. Are they going to stop the run and say, let's make Deshaun Watson beat us, and then hope that he's still rusty, or are they going to come out and see where he's at before they commit to it?
I wonder
because it's an extremely risky proposition to say we're going to let Deshaun Watson beat us,
right?
Because he's done that to teams. Like it's not impossible, but
I do wonder if they're going to blitz, if they're going to see if the pressure kind of gets to him again, because we saw last week where it wasn't even the offensive line was very poor last week, but pressure got to him and he was flustered.
Well, I think we're going to see a lot of the same things that we have in terms of how defenses are pressuring the Browns now. They know that the weak spot is right up the middle.
Yeah.
So everyone's been bringing the A gap pressure. Very rarely have you seen like pressure on the edges that isn't from a defensive lineman. So I think what you're probably going to see is a lot of Kareem Hunt. Like if that's going to be a game plan from the Bengals, then you're probably going to see a lot of Kareem Hunt, because as good as Nick Chubb is, he's still not a very good pass blocker for whatever reason.
Right.
Which doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but
he's big, physical.
Yeah,
he's a smart guy.
Like it doesn't make a ton of sense that he's not good at pass blocking, but it's just whatever his skill set is.
And Hunt is one of the better ones in the entire league. So
yeah, it's almost unfair to compare him,
right?
But I mean, the Browns should know what's coming. They know this team, They know the Bengals. They know what they're going to do on defense. They do have DJ Reader back. They didn't have him in October. That didn't exactly help them against in the run against the Chiefs, who aren't a running team. They ran for 140 yards on Sunday.
Right.
So, I mean, I think that was the Chiefs' plan seemed to be to get the yards that were there on the ground. They were much more inclined to run the ball than I think we've seen out of them in a long time on Sunday.
But I think that was Cincinnati's kind of game plan. Like that's a game plan they've shown the past couple of years is force them to run the ball. Like they're gonna drop back a lot of guys, muddy the secondary, and I don't know. They're probably not going to run that same situation against the Browns.
No, I don't think you're going to be rushing 3, dropping 8 against the Browns. Not with the offensive line struggles that they've had.
Right.
I mean, if you're rushing 3, dropping 8 against the Browns, Deshaun Watson's going to run for 7 yards, and then he's going to run for 6 yards.
Yeah.
Then he's going to run for 7 yards.
We're going to see the Baltimore offense.
Yeah. Like, if you're going to rush 3, just take what's there and go get a few yards.
Yeah.
Draw plays, screen plays. Like, the fact that the Chiefs can't solve the Bengals is so weird to me. Like, just to go off on a bit of a tangent. Like, that offense can solve any problem.
Yep.
But the Bengals have some like devil magic on them.
Seriously. Like they've beaten every. I think I wouldn't be surprised if Patrick Mahomes has beaten every single team in the league except for the
Except the Chiefs.
Bengals. Except for the Bengals. Like it's pretty crazy. But that's sometimes just how the NFL is. Like there's just sometimes where you just
Yeah, a certain roster and scheme like just
yeah
perfectly negates what you do, and
yeah
that could be what happens with. I mean,
with the
it's
Browns.
funny that the Bengals have this potentially 2 weeks in a row where they play a team that no matter what the other team does, they have their number, and then they come back the next week, and no matter what the Bengals do, the other team has their number. Like,
Right.
and that could be disproven on Sunday. I don't know, but
Yeah. It'll be interesting. So keeping on the offense, passing game struggled last week, obviously because of Deshaun Watson, but he may get a key guy back here, David Njoku. It looks like it, at least from his aspect, it looks like he is leaning towards playing. He, at least all the talk around the team seems like he wants to play, and he's healthy enough to play. But we'll still see on that one. But I think he might actually be the key to kind of unlocking Deshaun, at least better than what we saw last week, because he just didn't have really anybody to kind of like dump it off to.
yeah,
Like he didn't really target the running backs very much. And then obviously the receivers are downfield, and then the ones that did dump off were like that Bell. Bell would have been a good guy to dump
yeah,
off to.
it certainly hurt that
Yeah,
Bell was out and
and like your guy was
Njoku was
Schwartz.
out,
Like
and Schwartz
Schwartz
isn't
was your
someone
middle
that's
guy.
gonna.
Yeah,
Yeah, like I don't think the offense is ever gonna voluntarily run Schwartz on 5 yard stop routes,
right.
or
Yeah,
over the middle routes because he's just like as good as he is at certain things, he is not built for going over the middle.
right. Yeah,
Mentally, I don't think.
yeah.
Physically, I don't. He's
Physically,
definitely not. But
physically, yeah.
he's yet to show the mental side of going over the middle. And I think a lot of they really wanted to try and stretch out the defense last week
Hmm.
because the Texans have been liable to that.
Right.
They've given that up. So there wasn't a whole lot of DPJ being real close to the line of scrimmage either.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, he's another guy that will be probably closer to the line this week.
yeah, I don't think this will be a game like they had on Halloween where everything is played except for one play. Everything is played within like a 10-yard box of the line of scrimmage. I think you're going to see a lot of maybe what they tried to do to the Bengals when Baker was on in 2020, which was go deep and stretch out the defense that way. Granted, that was a much worse Bengals defense, but um,
We also
it's
didn't
in
see much play action last week either.
no they really didn't show a whole lot of anything.
Right.
They showed read option on film. They showed RPO on film. They didn't
Yeah.
show a whole lot of the extent of it
Yeah. True.
because they didn't need it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. We didn't see a lot of RPOs either. Like it was basically just kind of zone read and kind of handoffs and all that. But so maybe they were kind of, obviously I think it was a combination of they didn't need to, and then Watson struggling, and then just kind of the progression of the offense, just because he's still that was his first game, so you don't want to throw it all at him right away.
Yeah.
So I definitely think we'll see a more advanced scheme this week.
I mean, there was definitely a point in that game where they decided we don't need to do a whole lot.
Yeah, especially when you're basically not passing the last 8 minutes of the game, it shows a sign that they kind of like, okay, we're on to next week. We're on to Cincinnati.
Quite literally.
Yeah, like right, literally, we're on to Cincinnati. Yeah, the last key kind of thing is just the offensive line has to play so much better than they did last week. Wyatt Teller needs to wake up, because you can't have your center who's already pretty bad, and you can't have your high priced guard being bad too. That like you can't have two guys in the middle just being a sieve.
Yeah, the inconsistency of the offensive line this year has been the most weird, frustrating part.
Yeah,
Like there'll be games where they look really good, and then they'll come back the next week, and two or three of the guys will lay an egg,
right.
and it ruins almost the whole offense because when your whole offense is predicated on offensive line movement and
Yeah,
that kind of stuff, it really negates what they do.
right. Yeah, and
I
obviously
mean,
a lot of it is
obviously, being down to your 17th center hurts.
yeah.
I mean, if Furholt gets hurt, the Bill Callahan might go out there and play center. Like,
Oh yeah.
I don't
Yeah,
know who's next on the line.
right.
I really don't. I really don't know who's next.
I think they signed a guy, but I have no idea what his name would be. But yeah, the health has obviously killed this team, this offensive line.
And it's not even the health of the entire line. Obviously, Teller has had his issues, but he's kind of come back from that. I think
Conklin continues
Conklin
to
has not
struggle.
been the same since he got hurt last year.
Right.
Since he first got hurt last year, he came back. He got hurt, was out, came back, got hurt again, and was done for the year.
Yeah. Like he
Um,
played like a half a game, didn't he? I think it was
yeah,
like yeah.
yeah, something like that. But I think there's only so much next man up that you can do
Right.
before it just the bottom drops out.
Right.
And I think we're right at that point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I don't think the bottom has completely dropped out. I think Furholt does have some good reps, and he had some good reps at guard when he was filling in for Teller. I just think
I think he's just not a center.
he's not a center. Like
He's just not a center.
like you might be better off putting Batonio there, but then you have a hole at left guard,
Right.
and you can't really have a hole at left guard when Wills has been as inconsistent as he's been.
Yeah. It's one of those things you don't want to create a problem just to shore it up a little bit. Like
Yeah, this isn't Madden. You can't just put
right.
your best offensive lineman on the line. These are real people that have to, play a position that they may have never played before.
Right. It's basically we're just kind of at the point where the individuals have to play better. We need to see. Antonio's been great. That guy you can just throw out there and it'll be fine. Wyatt Teller needs to be a lot more consistent. And then Wills has to be consistent. Like it's so weird. We talked about it a lot this year. It just he has these great reps, and then he just has one that looks like
he doesn't know what he's doing.
Football, yeah,
yeah.
His consistency just needs to improve. Conklin, you just hope he can get healthier each week.
Yeah, I think the reality is these are Conklin's last 5+ games.
Right. Yeah.
In Cleveland, I think they have an out in his contract, and it's pretty hefty contract, and he has not been healthy enough to, unfortunately, justify bringing back.
Right.
As good as he's been, like.
Yeah, you're gonna have a new right tackle next year.
You got to cut bait, and the right tackle could be Wills. Like he played that in college. Now that was because Tua was a lefty, and he was still protecting the blind side.
Right.
But I don't know if that's something you'd want to do because now he's had 3 years at left tackle, and you'd be screwing with the mechanics again.
Right. Yeah. I doubt they would do that, but well, who knows? It's going to be interesting to see what they do with the offensive line.
They could honestly just promote Hudson, who is someone they like.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because this is going to be the first kind of offseason where they gotta address the offensive line one way or another.
They shouldn't have to address center because they have Nick Harris, who they really like, who has shown that he's very good in flashes, but they lost him on the first play of the preseason. Right. So, they have that piece there. They potentially have a right tackle. I mean, they could sign a tackle, but I don't know if they really need to.
Right.
But that's up to them. But I also think we have gone way too far down this rabbit hole.
Right, I know. Right. Okay, as we move on. So the advantages I think we talked about. It's basically the same as every game they've had in the last two seasons here against Cincinnati, running the ball and then getting after Joe Burrow.
Yep.
What are your keys to victory before we get to our prop bets this week?
If they're going to win, they're going to have to continue to be able to run the ball on the Bengals, which they've done consistently. The only game they didn't was the game where they had to come back because they just couldn't run the ball that day. So they're going to have to continue to be able to run the ball. Myles Garrett's going to have to do what he did against Tampa. I don't know how much of that he has left in the tank because it looks like his arm could fall off. It literally looks like they've taped his arm onto his shoulder.
I know every drive
because he has that whole apparatus taped up right there. It looks like
Right.
they've taped him on.
Every drive he looks like he's just
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to feel sorry for him because he kind of did it to himself. But like, I'm glad that he's out there doing like suffering through and still making the most of it. I mean, the guy has 10 sacks on one arm,
right,
or 9 sacks on one arm. So like,
pretty incredible.
And you know they got to get after him. And you got to force at least one turnover.
Yeah.
The last 2 games they've played against the Bengals that they won, and I'm not counting the December one again. The last 2 times they've played Joe Burrow, they've gotten him to throw an interception at least once.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, every time they've played Joe Burrow, they've gotten him to throw an interception.
Yeah.
I think he is 5 touchdowns, 4 interceptions against the Browns. And 3 of those touchdowns came in one game.
Yeah.
So
I think the other way around too is the Browns can't turn it over.
No, they cannot do what they did last week.
Yeah. Can't give Joe Burrow short field. Yeah, that's a recipe for disaster there. Other than that, run the ball. Deshaun just has to be better. Be able to handle the pressure. Because it's going to come. Because the offensive line is just struggling, and it is what it is. And Cincinnati has a solid pass rush, so they can get after you. So he's just gotta improve this week. He can't be Texans. He can't be last week's, or the Browns are gonna get run out of the field.
Yeah, I mean he doesn't have to be 2019 or 2020 Deshaun Watson. He doesn't need to be best quarterback in the league. He just needs to be
Jacoby Brissett.
Usable.
Right. Yeah. Don't turn it over. Special teams has to be good again. Continue the good return game would be nice to see. We need Katie York to make us field goals.
Yeah.
Don't get blocked, please.
Yep.
For the 5th straight time or whatever it would be. 5th time this year or whatever.
4th
time. Seems like 500, but
well, yeah. Anytime you start getting into the 3-4 range, it feels like there's a chance that any one of them could get blocked.
Right. Yeah. Basically, it's kind of continue the formula we've seen the last 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
Get after Burrow, run the ball. Don't make mistakes. Turn over Joe Burrow once or twice, and see where you're at. Because they do, as we said, they do match up pretty well in terms of their receivers and our cornerbacks. It'll be the other key would be kind of not allowing their run game to get going. But that's a big hill.
Yeah, whether you're asking the Browns to stop them, or you're asking the Bengals
Zach Taylor,
to forget that running the ball exists.
That's basically what we're asking for.
Yeah, you're more likely to get Zach Taylor to forget that the running game exists than you are to get the Browns to stop the run.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah. It's not a hard kind of keys of victory because we've seen them do it the past couple times. But yeah, okay. So let's get to our prop bets before we get to this week's. Last week we both went 4-4. It was kind of weird game to kind of diagnose because we didn't know what Deshaun was going to be. And the game turned out to be even weirder than we could have expected.
Yeah, when you have a score of 5-0 and then 7-5,
Right.
you're,
Yeah,
you're in weird territory.
exactly. So Browns won 27-14. So we were both on Browns -7. So we were both correct. Over under 47.5. We were both wrong. They were under 41.
The thing that I think we didn't take into account is that the Texans have scored 20 points exactly once this year, and it
Right.
was in week 1, and they tied.
Right.
So
And I think at least for me, we put too much emphasis on Deshaun Watson being actually ready to go. I think at least I did.
yeah,
Next one,
but the thing is, had he not thrown that pick, they would have gotten the over probably.
yeah, true. That's a good point. That is a very good
so,
point.
so like all it took was one offensive touchdown.
Yeah. Next one was over under Chubb 91.5. He just got under. It was at 80. So we're both wrong on that. Watson over under 320. He was not even close. He was at 152, which you had. You had Taylor. You had the under. Over under Cooper, 100 receiving yards. We were both right on that. He only had 40. And then the Texan rushing attack, it was over under 90 total rushing yards, and it was at 82. So I was right on that one.
Yep.
Close. That was very close.
Yeah.
And then the most touchdown receptions, no one got a touchdown reception, so we were both wrong.
No one on the offense scored.
Yeah. And then the last one was the final score. We both had the Browns. You had 34-20, and then I had 31-20. So we were pretty. It was close on that one.
Yeah.
If I was guessing what we were thinking last week, I don't think we would have got how they were scored those points. But
no, I don't think we would have anticipated how they got to 14.
No. Okay, so this week it is Browns plus 6.5, according to FanDuel.
I will take the 6.5.
I agree with you. I'm taking the 6.5. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm picking the Browns, but I don't think it's going to be a touchdown.
I don't think they're going to get blown out.
Right.
By any means.
Yeah.
There's no data that would suggest that the Browns are going to get blown out by the Bengals, given the way that they've played each other the last couple of years.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, next one is 47.5 over under. I'm going to go over.
I'm going to go considerably over.
Yeah. This week we have the Bengals who are able to score rather than the Texans who couldn't score.
Yeah, but like even if you go back to the game in October, that hit the over. That would have hit this over. Right. Wouldn't it? I don't think it would have hit the over in October. I think the over was lower. But what they hit 48 in October? No, it was 32-13, right? So it didn't hit the over.
No, it was just under. It
was just under. But like even in that kind of a slop fest of a game, you almost hit the over.
And like I don't foresee the Bengals scoring 13. I just don't.
No, unless they get in their own way again, which
right.
I mean they're one to do, but
you would think they would learn from their problems, but who knows?
Yeah.
Okay, over under Joe Burrow touchdowns 2.5.
I'm gonna go under. I think he has 2.
2. Okay. I'm gonna go under also, because they do like to around the goal line. They do run the ball like Joe Mixon will. So I think they'll be under. I think 2 is probably the right number. So we're going even. We're doing the same thing so far. Over under Bengal rushing yards 110.
This one's tough because
they average 100 per game.
This one's tough because they average that, but then whatever the Browns do to shut them down in the run game works consistently.
Right, but then also they're
Some of that
running.
might be the fact that Joe Mixon has the ball carrier vision of a blind squirrel, but um,
And they have been running better in the past couple games. So
yeah,
it's like there's different thing, and the run defense sucks. So it's a different. It's very. This is a tough one. This is
yeah.
a tough one.
I think I feel like it'll be under, but I don't think it'll be 38 yards like we saw in October.
Mhm. I think the Browns I think the Browns have to hold them under. If it's over, then they lost the game. I think. You agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, 110. I'm gonna go under. I know we're agreeing on all these, but I think I just think it's tough to not say under when we've seen all this evidence where the Bengals just don't run against this team for some reason. So I'm going to go under.
They have Myles Garrett. We better pass.
I know, right? That seems like a smart idea. Oh man. Okay, this one's a interesting one. Over under Deshaun Watson total yards 266.5. So I got this from Underdog Fantasy. They
I
got me
think
that number.
nice plug.
Okay.
I think over. I'm thinking over on this one.
Okay.
I think I don't know if he'll have 267 passing yards, but I think he'll have enough rushing yards to offset it, even if it's 30 or 40. I honestly think I have this feeling that they might come out and
Passing.
do a almost similar to the Ravens. They have the offense now to kind of run some of that stuff. Obviously, Deshaun Watson is not Lamar Jackson when it comes to downfield speed, but like they have the ability to do that. So I wouldn't be surprised if they threw that wrinkle out there and they wanted to confuse the defense a little bit with more option game.
Yeah. I know we're agreeing on every single one of these, but I agree on that. 266. That's. I think they're going to have to pass. I think they might have to. They might be trailing in this game. So I think at the end of the day, I think he'll get over. I think he'll get like 250 maybe. Because I think they'll have to pass, but
yeah,
I'm going to take the over on that one. Nick Chubb, 90 rushing yards.
Um,
He's been under lately, except for the Bucks game, I think.
I'm gonna go under because I think Deshaun Watson running the ball actually cuts into his yards more than it cuts into Kareem Hunt's.
Okay. I'm going to go over. Let's get the difference here.
That was part of the reason I took the under.
Yeah. I just think just based on his success against Cincinnati, I'm going to go over. I do agree. I think it's probably going to be pretty tight to that number because I agree with you. Deshaun is going to take some of the rushing yards, but I feel like Nick Chubb's going to get a big one this week. We haven't seen one. We haven't seen one in a while. I think he breaks one, and
yeah, he's due for that.
He is due. And there was a couple last week. I think he tripped on one of them or a couple of them where he's like he could have had it. So I think he gets that.
Yeah.
Thanks to like a big run. Okay, next one is this one could be thrown out, so we're gonna say it now. If Njoku doesn't play, this is gonna be thrown out. That's why I added an extra one in. But more receiving yards, Cooper or Njoku?
I'm gonna go with Njoku. I think being that he's gonna probably exist in a kind of a safety valve space, I think he's gonna get more chances to get the ball. I mean, obviously, this call could be offset if Cooper catches another 51-yard pass like he did on Halloween. But I think Njoku is going to have more targets. He might not have more yards in the end, but I'm going to go with it. But I think he's going to have more chances to get those yards.
I think it's going to be pretty close. I think they're both going to have big games, but I'm going to go Cooper just to be different again. I think I feel like they have success in a lot of games. They've had success on the sidelines against Cincinnati. Even going back to OBJ, um, going back to Cooper in this first game,
Peoples-Jones.
Peoples-Jones. Yeah, I just think they've had success there, and I think Cooper will be heavily targeted and get some good yardage there. So I'll go with Cooper. Um, last over under is Myles Garrett 1.5 sacks. I'm going to go over, by the way.
I'm also going to go over.
Yeah,
I think 2 is a good number.
Yeah, that's why I was great. That's why,
Unless they dedicate their entire offense to making sure Myles Garrett doesn't ruin their day.
which we have not seen yet. So,
No, we haven't seen them particularly do it.
Right. Yes. Most teams do, but yeah, that's why I'm going to go over. I think he's just been a terror against Cincinnati, and I think he's gotten at least 2 sacks. Did he get how many sacks did he have last week or last game? I think he had 2.
I think he had 1.
Oh, he only had 1.
I don't know if he actually had any against the Texans. He might have 1, but he had 2 against the Bucs.
Right. Yeah, I think he's on a hot streak, and then he's facing a team that he's usually successful against. So I'm going to go over. Okay, final one is final score prediction. What you got?
I still, even though we've kind of talked ourselves into it for the last hour plus now, first time we've gone over an hour. Even though we've kind of talked ourselves into it, I still think it's going to be tough to go down there and win with how well they're playing right now.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be shocked if they win. The history would say that they have a good chance. But I just the team is still kind of in prove it mode.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't exactly earn a whole lot last week because the offense was so bad. So I think we're probably looking at I'm going to go 31-26 Bengals.
Oh, wow. That's pretty funny. I had 31-27 Bengals. Yeah, I agree with you. It's pretty much, this is how I'm thinking. It's the one last kind of show me game. Like I can't buy in to this kind of final run until they show me against this team. Bengals are the hottest team, one of the hottest teams in the league. Browns are coming off an awful kind of offensive showing. Deshaun has a lot to improve on. It's just one of those things they got to show me before I can kind of go in and trust them. So that's why I'm going to go Bengals 31-27. But it's still going to be a competitive game. It's going to be, I think the Browns cover. They do. I think they get well over the over-under 47.5. But I think the Bengals, that offense is it's humming right now. And the run game is playing well. I think
we'll put it this way: if the Browns defense goes down to Cincinnati and shuts and is able to slow down this offense,
right,
with the 4 weeks that they've had, the last 4 games, that might go a long way to saving Joe Wood's job. And I don't think that's anything anyone wants to hear.
Or it might compel the Kansas City Chiefs to hire him.
Yeah, or the Chiefs need to find their own. Well, the Chiefs have too much money dedicated to their offense right now.
Right,
but
true. Yeah,
it's a weird phenomenon that a defense that no one that watches the team likes can be so good against a team that is so good offensively.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it's baffling. There's got to be The only thing I can kind of compare it to is that until Monday night, until Monday night, the fact that the Saints had like completely dominated Tom Brady
Right.
in his time at Tampa Bay. He's now 2-4 against him. Like,
all right, that's a good point.
Does that make any sense? No.
No.
The Saints haven't particularly been good the last 3 years.
Yeah.
But they keep beating them for some reason, and they've blown them out like twice.
Right.
So
yeah.
It's a
good point.
It's just one of those weird things that exist in the league. Yeah. The Chiefs can't beat the Bengals.
We'll see. We'll see if the Bengals
apparently
can't beat
the Yeah, well, I mean, if the Bengals can't beat the Browns this week, then I think it's real.
Right. I definitely agree with that. Yeah, because this is like their Browns offense is struggling. Bengals are one of the hottest teams. Like everything should go Bengals, like just based on what everything is looking at.
Yeah.
Like I'm looking at this ESPN predictor as 73% for Cincinnati. Like everything should be going towards the Bengals, but you never know.
Yeah. If they win this game and they give up less than 20 points, the Browns defense against Joe Burrow thing is real.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that would be 4 games. That would be 4 games, or five games that they played against Joe Burrow, and they would have won all of them. Even granted, I don't know if they necessarily deserve to win the comeback one.
Right.
But
yeah, it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be a fun game. I'm excited for it. There's the past couple, not last week, but before that, we're kind of hesitant, kind of going in. But I'm excited to see how this team plays. Even though I picked them to lose, I'm excited to see how they play, how much Watson improves, and should be a fun one. I don't see a blowout either way, so it's going to be a fun game.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts before we get out of here?
I don't like I've said, I don't necessarily believe that the Browns are going to win this game, but with the way that Cincinnati Twitter has acted this week, if the Browns win this game, Browns fans are going to be so insufferable.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be great. It's gonna be great. Yeah, that just kind of gives it even more intrigue to this game. I'm excited.
Like the Twitter fights where Bengals fans are pretending not to care about the Browns while also throwing the Super Bowl in the face. Like, yeah, obviously, yes, we know we haven't been to a Super Bowl, but like, obviously, you care enough to bring that up. So
right.
Don't say this game doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I'm excited, and we'll be back with everybody after this game. Probably pretty close to after that. Yeah, it's gonna be a fun one, and we'll see what this offense has coming out of probably their worst showing of the year. So,
yep.
Thanks for joining us, everybody, and go Browns.